Hello, we are back for another episode of Don't Ruin This For Me, a podcast where we ruin all the things you used to love. Elizabeth, let me ask you, how do you feel about wire hangers?
I hate them.
Really?
I hate them. As a matter of fact, when I pick up my one blouse, because you know I only have one blouse.
Just the one. I think I gave it to you.
You definitely gave it to me. There's no question. Actually, I guess I have two blouses. One that never needs dry cleaning that you also gave to me.
Oh, good.
And one that needs dry cleaning. And when I go to get them dry cleaned,
Yes.
Which I don't usually do,
Yes.
I always ask them to not put them on the hangers, to fold them, because I do not want them coming back to my house. However,
Yes.
I do not hate wire hangers so badly that I would beat a child with one.
Listen, I guess that's good news. And hey, everybody's already guessing. This week we are covering Mommie Dearest. This 1981 movie starring Faye Dunaway as Joan Crawford is absolute queer canon. On its face, it's a story about an aging Hollywood starlet trying to raise her adopted children while managing her career and love.
She is a lover, but it's actually not about that, right?
No.
It's actually about the memoir of Joan's first adopted daughter, Christina Crawford, where she spills the beans about her mother, who is a narcissist, abusive, alcoholic.
Yeah.
With great clothes.
Yes.
And I would argue that it's more a series of related scenes than a cohesive film. There's like no real plot, but I don't care because the acting is legendary. The costumes are RuPaul worthy, and the one-liners unforgettable.
And speaking of RuPaul, right after watching this film, I had to go back and watch the Snatch Game with Alyssa Edwards as Faye Dunaway as Joan Crawford in Mommie Dearest, because honestly, Alyssa is my Joan always and forever. Don't fuck with me, fellas. Joining us this week is the wonderful David Cerda. David is a co-founder and artistic director of Handbag Productions, a theatrical group formed to celebrate and preserve the art of high camp. And if that isn't enough, he's also the lead singer in the band The Jones. So obviously he's the absolute perfect guest for this week's episode. Also, I'm obsessed with David.
I know.
It's true. Elizabeth did a show with him at Printers Row, and I was like, go talk to him. Go make friends. Because
and I did it. I did it for her.
Yes, because like 10 years ago, I saw David in Miracle, which is still, I saw that show 3 times. I kept bringing, I thought it was so fucking funny and like so touching. I brought like everyone I know. I was like, you've got to come with me to Miracle. And I really want you to bring it back, even though I know it's probably like 10 years later, tough, but...
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
I would do it.
Yeah, I would love it. I would never saw it. And it's funny because when we met at Printers Row, you and I, David, and Adrian was like, David Cerda's here. And I was like, oh, yeah? Okay. Which one is he?
I was like, we're definitely making friends with David Cerda.
Right. And then she was like, but you know, it's funny because you and I have only met that one time.
Right.
And I feel like actually that we have like a connection.
Yeah,
it's
I do
weird.
too.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can't even explain it.
Well, I think he was judging you at that contest.
Yes,
he was the famous
totally
city
fine.
judge.
And you were the Law and Order porn.
Yes.
Maybe that's what the connection's about.
There's nothing I love more than murder.
Yes.
Adrian, tell me what you've been up to this week.
Not much. I mean, again, with the Love is Blind and reading books. I'm reading the new Curtis Sittenfeld book, which is about SNL. I wonder if our producer Christine's going to get in on that. She likes a little, improv comedy behind the scenes moment. What about you?
Me, I've been really obsessed with watching Swarm.
Oh,
yeah. That movie.
Is it good?
It starts off, the first episode scared the crap out of me just because the first scene is the main character in bed and all you hear is bzzz. It's like all the buzzing of the bees. And my like skin started crawling. So I had to turn it off. And I am a horror fan. Like I love horror. I love murder stories. I'm all into it. And it scared me so much that I like turned it off and I had to wait a couple of days before I turned it back on.
Well, that's the title of the Irwin Allen disaster movie, The Swarm.
Yes.
With Olivia de Havilland as the school principal.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I don't know when I last saw that movie. I mean, that's classically old. Right?
Well, she does an announcement at the school on the PA system. Attention, students, attention. There is a swarm of killer bees headed our way.
Oh my God, you're going to be so good for this episode.
Yes.
I definitely thought that I think the acting is really interesting. Each story is kind of very interesting. It's actually about fandom, which is completely a new territory for me. Next to, there was a fan, I think, had come out a while back with Patton Oswalt. Wasn't that the fan? Do you guys remember that one?
I thought you were talking about Swim Fan.
And I'm going way back. I'm like with Lauren Bacall in the 70s. I was like, never mind.
Yeah, but anyways, I'm super obsessed with that. I've been very much into listening to Tyler Childers, who is a country musician that I've been hoedowing in my own house.
Wow. I'm surprised.
Yeah. And mostly like focusing on the century that I'm trying to do. So,
well, people don't know what that means. She's riding a bicycle. She's going to ride 100 miles in one day across Virginia.
Yeah, from Richmond to Jamestown and Jamestown to Richmond.
Yes.
And hopefully I make it. But, you know, my motto is...
What made you think of this? You know what?
Why do people run marathons?
Yeah, you know, it's Adrian and I have a bike team called Team Tough Muff, where we do we're like middle-aged people just riding long distance.
I think that's why I love this.
Yeah. So it's never like how fast we get anywhere. Just make sure that we make it.
Sure.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Well, we never get anywhere fast.
Yes, no.
We're very slow and old. I mean, it may take her 10 hours to finish this century, but she'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I figure my life motto is you can always quit.
Yeah. It is her life motto.
Yes.
She taught it to me.
Yeah, it's the greatest, most freeing thing to do because then you can always try anything, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you can just quit unless you're mid bungee jumping, then you can't quit.
Right, then you're in it.
Then you're in it.
Then you're in it.
All right, let's talk about the recap.
Let's do it.
We're going to focus a lot of time on this opening scene because this opening scene, David, is remarkable, right? So we have the alarm going off.
Yep.
And Joan is in bed, and you don't see her face yet.
No.
She is just like coming out of bed, and you can tell that she has this elastic band kind of thing. What do you think
she's
that
holding
is?
her fucking face together.
Right.
What do you mean? What do I think it
Just
is?
support her chin.
Yes.
Where can we get one of those? I think I want one.
I don't know that they work, but you know, it's the pre-Botox, like pre-filler era. So she's got her face like elasticized in a thing.
Yes. And then she walks into her bathroom and starts making coffee.
Yes.
Yes.
She has a coffee maker in her bathroom.
Smart.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Then she pulls out a bowl of ice, puts it on top of the counter, pours in a tonic maybe. I thought for a moment maybe it was gin.
No, that's what a lot of people think. I think it's supposed to be mineral water or something like that.
And then she puts ice on her face and she sprinkles and then she scrubs the heck out of all of her skin, all of her skin, her hands, her arms, her elbows. And then she showers and dresses. And I thought this scene, I was like, I have seen this scene a million times. And every single time it just grabs me right away. Right?
That tells you who she is.
Yes.
Well, I want to know what your opinion about the opening is because you are famous for your skincare routine.
Can you tell?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Glowing.
I do love a skincare routine. Mine is not this intense. I mean, especially she has a hard bristle brush that she's like on her nails. Like that's a lot. You know, my cuticles couldn't handle that. But I do subscribe to a 9-step skincare routine I respect it.
Yeah, I think you even texted me. You're like, this skincare routine.
Yeah, I was like, this is intense. I mean, I'm not doing the ice thing because I seem to have more red in my skin than Joan. So my whole face would be red after.
I don't know. Her face looks very white in the movie. But then after her incredible skincare routine, we get snapshots of her. She is an actress.
Yes.
So she's got a script. She's got a meeting. She's got a moment where she's getting dressed up.
She's
for
got
a show.
servants to yell at.
Yep. She comes home. She yells at her servants, establishing the fact that she's obviously very OCD about her cleaning. You know, because her mother has. But she alludes to the fact that her mother was very messy and very dirty. And then we have her boyfriend who enters the chat.
Greg.
Do you want to pick it from there?
Greg's ready for a shower fuck. And that's what Greg's ready for. He comes in, he has a little, he takes his top off, he has a little towel. They get into the large shower. There's a lot of attention paid to the water turning on from separate.
Yeah, there's 3 heads there, right? Mm-hmm. My favorite part is when he walks in and she's like, you have to take off your shoes. And he's like, what about my socks? And she like looks at him with this like very like rawr, sexy look, and she's like, "I think I can handle the socks."
She's a maniac.
I was like, this movie is so great. I mean, the whole time I'm just like, this movie is so great. Okay, then after Greg enters this chat, basically we see a scene of Joan, and she's giving gifts to orphans because that's what she does.
Yes,
and then she decides she
it's
wants
very
to have
performative. Everything,
Yes.
She's like, everybody look at me. I'm giving gifts to orphans. Isn't this lovely?
For the studio.
Yes, for the studio.
And then she
thinks, you know what? I should get an orphan of my own.
And what I love that too, because like then the next scene is like her and Greg are walking on the beach. Again, no cohesiveness, no
Right, it doesn't matter.
movement into it. It just happens. And she says that she wants to have a kid, and he's like, "You're too old to get pregnant." And I was like, savage.
Well, he tells her she's too vain to get pregnant.
Oh yeah,
first.
vain. Right.
Even worse.
Greg's whole role in this movie is just to remind her how old she is.
Yeah.
He's always like, "You're old."
She's like, no matter, go get me a baby. And because he's a lawyer, he does.
From the Jewish mafia.
Yes.
That's how they got it.
Yes.
I was like, where did this baby come from? All right, we're just going to keep rolling.
Well, and then Christopher, maybe, David's going to know the answer to this. Why is Christopher always in a harness? Why is he always strapped to shit?
Because he sleepwalked.
Okay.
And he would go out of bed and like they were afraid he's going to fall down the steps.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they strapped him in. He's like, because even when he's a baby and she's showing him off at like the press thing, he's got this fucking harness on.
Well, yeah, because then we end up at Christina's birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
She's a young lady, a little girl, and that's where we're introduced to Christopher.
Uh-huh.
And this is the first moment that we notice something's really wrong with Joan.
At least in her mothering.
Right. Christina has like a grass stain on her dress, and one of the photographers.
I love that.
Yes. The photographer who's taking a picture of the whole family is like, that grass stain's going to show. And Christina's like, I'm going to go change. And her mother is like irritated because her mother has said, you don't have to go change.
Right.
And she's decided to go change. And because Christina has begun to defy her.
Uh-huh. We don't have room for that.
Faye Dunaway gives the best side eye I have ever seen in movies. As in like, you little fucking bitch, I will kill you.
And Jimmy goes, it might read, Miss Crawford.
Yeah.
And she goes, all right.
It might read.
And I was like, oh, Joan is not nice at all.
No.
Yeah. And then after that, we're at the end of the party because, all this has happened. And at the end of the party, Christina is looking at her dolls.
Yeah.
Right.
Or her gifts, her presents.
Yeah. And Joan says,
What? She's like, you can keep one present.
right. And then
Yeah.
Greg walks in. Greg walks in with a bracelet, and she's like, oh, I can't have it.
Yeah.
And Joan is like, well, you can have that maybe.
Well, poor Christina, this actress, this haircut, this wig, she's really irritating. Because she's also, like, oh, Mommy Dearest, can't I keep this doll? No, I'll give it to the orphans. You're just like, shut the fuck up, Christina.
Oh, I also like it when she's like, Mommy Dearest. And Joan Crawford is like, and when I asked you to call me that, I wanted you to mean it. So fucking good. Okay, so then after the birthday party, what do we get? Do we get Joan?
Who knows?
Joan's complaining to Greg because she can't get a role, and he's like, "What's happening? We're gonna go and try to meet the Golden Mayor guys, right?" And then we see Joan, she's jogging. And
oh, yes, this is great. She's like, what she goes through. So her maid is driving a car alongside her while she drives. Very reminiscent of our Rocky movie last week. I'm not sure why the maid is there other than to like roll down the window and be like, if people knew what you went through.
Fans knew the price you paid.
Yes, exactly.
The mayor knew the price
Yes.
I paid.
She's like in a full sweatsuit, just like saunaing
Towel
it out.
tucked inside.
Running up a hill. Yes, it's pretty amazing. Then she gets home and she gets this role. She's so excited. She's going to tell Christina about it. But Christina is at Joan's dressing table and she's acting out like, what I don't even remember what she's saying.
Yes. It was thrilling. My fans who have made me a star. And then she just keeps saying it over and over a different way. Oh, yes.
Yeah, she's like a little girl who's like just, I mean, the thing about this scene, I have to say, is like so weird because what Christina is doing is actually very sweet, right? Like she knows her mother's an actress and she's like, I'm going to be an actress and I'm going to play this like role that I am. And Joan does not like it.
She comes in and starts hacking her fucking hair off.
Because she had setting lotion in it.
That's true.
What did you do with your hair, Christina?
Christina's sobbing. So it's the first kind of indication we get that, the abuse is also going to be physical.
Yeah, that side eye was like the
tough.
easy part.
Yeah, it's tough.
Then we see Joan going to dinner with Greg, and she's getting mobbed by all these people. And then he goes off to the table and goes into the restaurant. And while he's in the restaurant, he runs into Mr. Mayer. And they all end up sitting with him. And Joan is so offended. She is offended.
Yes. She's not a piece of meat.
She was called to this table to have dinner at Mayer's table, and she could not stand it.
No.
And God damn it, Greg, why did you let me just leave me there with my mobs of fans?
Right. So Greg dumps her. He's like, I've had enough of this shit. And so then she cuts out all of Greg's faces and all her family photos. And then she puts them back in the frame with just like holes. And then Christina says, if she doesn't like you, she can make you disappear.
She actually changed the toilets too, the toilet seats.
Because he'd used them?
Yes.
Oh my God.
It wasn't in the film, but she would do that too.
I love that. Thank God you're here.
Yes.
And then we have another scene where Christina and Christopher are just being children.
Yes.
They're playing in the backyard.
And Joan in her big, huge mansion in this huge yard with a pool somehow has heard the children and cannot handle it.
No, she's
And
very
she
angry.
brings Christina upstairs and she says to Christina, I told you how important today was. What did I say to you?
Yes.
And Christina then goes back to her dolls and she repeats the same kind of discipline to the dolls, but Joan has seen it and she is not happy. And so Christina takes a shower. I love this scene. Christina takes a shower, comes out. She's wrapped in a towel. This cute little blonde girl comes to her mom. She's like, my dolls are missing. And Joan is on this white couch in a white robe with her hair up in this white towel, rubbing her elbows with lotion and her arms. And she's just looking at her daughter and she's like, well, they were selfish children anyway. You're just I just cannot get enough of this woman.
It's amazing.
And then we find out that Joan gets let go from the studio.
She's not happy about it.
No.
She's not happy.
She's fired. And for some reason is the next scene. So she's in the office with Meyer and he's like, you got to go. And then he gives her an excuse or whatever. She's gone. And now she's in a ball gown cutting rose bushes.
What? How else would you cut the rose bushes if you were having a meltdown?
And I can't. The whole time I'm just why is she in a ball gown? Why is she cutting rose bushes? How did we end up here? It's
Christina, bring me the axe. Christina. Then she cuts a tree down.
Yes.
I mean, well, the children are gotten out of bed to come down and assist.
Collect, yeah.
Yes. Assist with the carnage of the rose bush.
so weird. It's so weird. Then we get another scene where Christina is being told by Carol Ann that the mom, Joan, has gotten the role in Mildred Pierce, which is great. That's great news. And then the next scene, and it's so random. It's it doesn't match the first scene, the scene before it, in the rose bush scenes, and it doesn't match the next one where they're sitting at lunch.
It doesn't matter. It's just a montage of life.
Yes. And so she's having lunch with Christina. Christina does not want to eat her red meat. I don't know why parents are so obsessed with kids who are eating. I figure if you don't want to eat it, fine. I'm not going to make you something. You can starve to death. Not my problem.
Right. Yes. My mother.
Yeah.
Yes. No, but this is old school. My parents did this shit. You'll sit here forever.
Exactly.
It's not cool.
And so Christina doesn't eat it. There's this whole back and forth, and it's off. It's just awful. It feels uncomfortable, and you're just you're just weird. Why do you care? You have an Oscar to accept, which she does while she has the flu.
Yes, from home.
Yes.
The flu. In quotation marks.
Why didn't she go? Because
she was too terrified.
Oh, that she might lose.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, we move into the best scene of the film that's super, super iconic, which is the no more wire hanger scene. I don't think I need to rehash that. You guys all have seen it.
Well, I don't know if people have seen it. I mean, she goes into the closet.
so
she has
awful.
all these puffy hangers. She gets to a wire one. She yells at Christina, "No wire hangers ever!" And then she beats the shit out of her while she's in a bed with a wire hanger. And it's not
and Clorox. Like,
yeah, and it's
or
not
J-Jack.
even a dry cleaner wire hanger. It looks to be a thick. It's no. I mean, she really beats the shit out of her. It's terrifying.
Yeah, I would say that the hardest part of that scene though is like when she tells after she like hits her with the hanger, she like beats her for like not cleaning the bathroom. She has all these cleaning products over. Poor Christina is left in the bathroom like crying.
Yes.
Her little blonde curls are dusted with Ajax.
Yes, her face.
And her face. And Christopher walks up to her
In
like
his
in his harness. And he's like, "I'll help you."
Right.
And Christina looks at him and goes, "Don't, just go back to bed. She'll come for you. She'll kill you. She'll kill you." It is a scene that I just like, again, I love so much. But Christina later, like all this, she recovers from it. Now Joan has a new lover. His name's Uncle Ted. He does not like being called Uncle Ted and has reminded Christina that. But Christina makes him a drink anyway. And then she basically brings him up to her mom's bedroom, and things start happening between Joan and Ted.
It gets very creepy. They're making out. Then Christina comes back with more vodka for the mother. There's a lot of like significant stares.
Yes. Christina's like, I know what's going on.
Exactly. And you know what? Joan wants to get that dick, and so Christina's going to boarding school. She's out. You're out, bitch.
Right, then somehow she's a teenager.
Yeah.
And she's at the boarding
And
school.
she has a southern accent.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so Christina's in drama, following in her mother's footsteps, and she is going to school. Everything is fine, but she's like also growing up and becoming like a person and realizes that she has like sexual feelings. So she ends up making out with a guy in a barn.
As you do.
And gets expelled from school.
Well, she doesn't get expelled. They said that she was just like going to be on a little like, you know, the chick, the headmaster is like, it's not that big of a deal. And Joan's like, "You're all sluts," and like takes her away.
Right.
So Joan expels her from the school.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is this a school or a teenage brothel?
Yes, exactly.
And so then after they get out of school, she's bringing her home, and she's in the middle of a Red Book interview with a woman named Barbara. And she tells Barbara that Christina has gotten like expelled from school, and Christina was like, "You're lying." And the mom, Joan and Christina get into this huge fight, which, by the way, I have to mention this part. Adrienne loves to say that Legends of the Fall was her sexual awakening.
Brad Pitt.
This is this is one of my sexual awakening moments.
When Joan Crawford mounts her daughter?
when Joan Crawford is on top of her daughter, strangling her. I remember being a little girl being like looking at her like the girl's like white panties. And she's like moving her legs back and forth.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh, that's really like kind of sexy.
Okay, trivia time. Who was Barbara Bennett?
Ooh, I don't
Red
know.
Book
She is
person?
the sister of a famous actor.
Oh.
That is currently working now?
No, is dead.
Well, tell us.
Marlon Brando's sister.
Oh, shit.
Shut up.
Yeah.
She was the Red Book journalist?
Yes. I think her name was Jocelyn Brando. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Did this article ever come out? Did it lay this out? No.
It was. I don't know why they chose Red Book, but everything you're saying is like all the scenes you're talking about. I hear like at least a few times a week by all my old gay friends, like quotes from them. It's like John Waters. It's part of our lexicon.
Right.
Yes, I agree. You know, and rewatching this it was so delightful. I just had so much fun rewatching it. So after Christina gets like beaten up, she's sent now off to Catholic school.
Right.
Meanwhile, Joan gets married to her third husband or fifth husband, I don't know, Alfred, who's the executive of Pepsi. And then Christina becomes a actress. She gets hurt at some point, and this is the best part. Christina's
very
like in a
weird.
soap opera where she's playing like somebody's
Secret Storm.
is playing somebody's wife, and then the producer of the show is like, "Well, now that Christina can't do it because she's in the hospital, we're going to have her mom play her."
Right.
Which is like,
Very
My
weird.
character, 27 years old.
No matter.
Yes.
No matter.
And so eventually what happens is Joan dies penniless.
Well, no, you're
and-
leaving out the other most important
Okay, you
scene,
go.
which is after her husband dies. She's like goes to the
Oh,
Pepsi,
yes.
and she's at a boardroom with a bunch of Pepsi executives, and they're like, "Well, you owe us this money because your dude like leveraged things he shouldn't have because she wanted him to spend more money, yada yada." And they're like, "We've removed your seat on the board." David, what does she say?
You think you're clever, don't you? Sweeping the poor widow under the... Don't fuck with me, fellas!
Yes.
But
This
like
isn't my
every
first
single
rodeo.
Yeah, everything she says is just like perfect.
Yes. It's so good. Well, okay, then
You got
she
a movie
dies.
star
Right.
to sell your soda pop.
Right.
Yes. Then she dies and
then she
leaves
dies.
Christina and Christopher nothing.
Yes, on purpose because
Yes.
she's a hateful
For reasons that
bitches.
are well
Known to them.
Yes.
Yes.
That is literally the line for all you listeners who haven't seen this in a minute. So let's talk about this
Let's
because,
do it.
First of all, that recap has probably been my most favorite one we've done so
Yes.
far because
Yes.
it's just so full of good lines. And they're so easy to remember because I think, David, your point is it's just part of the lexicon. Like we all know these lines. And let's discuss a little bit about what makes it iconic, especially from your point of view, because you've done a lot of work around Joan and her life, but or her impressions in the world. What is it that you loved so much about this? Like when you first saw it versus now?
Well, when I first saw it, I saw it in the theater, and I think it was the Esquire Theater on.
Yeah, what was this? 81? I think
Yes.
it's 81 when it came out.
And when I saw it, I was, oh wow, this is horrible. This thing happened, and I didn't really it didn't click because I was younger and it was before my camp senses were activated, and but then it turned into this cult thing, and it just Faye Dunaway, her performance, and the fact that there's no redeeming qualities. There's no it's just diva, bitch, and it's the clothes and
The
so
makeup.
over the top, and the lines are so iconic.
Yeah.
The boys and the booze.
Yeah.
I should have known that
Yeah.
you'd know where the boys and the booze were.
Yeah, and just like when you polish the floor, you have to move the tree.
Yeah.
Just so many
If you're not going to do something right, then don't
Right.
do it at all.
right, and it's just I think it is Faye Dunaway.
Yeah.
Because she's just as crazy as Joan
Is she?
was.
That's what the read was. I also want to your point about it being a terrible movie. Roger Ebert.
We always love to.
I know
bring
we love
him
to bring him up, but 1 star.
What?
1 star.
But I think Faye Dunaway is really great in it.
Yes.
But it was just edited, so it's just like explosion. There was a scene where Christina ran away, and Joan found her and took her, and they sat on the corner of the street and had a talk, and she talked about being a little girl, and it was cut from. There were a lot of scenes cut from the movie.
Like,
to make
is there
it
anything
more-
that's gonna explain this
Yeah.
character?
Yeah.
Let's get it out.
Yeah, the closest thing is on the beach.
yeah, where she mentions her mom being messy.
Yeah, well, she grew up in a laundry, and her mother was kind of shady, and they grew up in abject poverty. She had a really difficult life, and her stepfather molested her when she was and she learned how to survive and fight.
Yeah, you get none of that in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, as
She was
a matter
the
of fact,
Madonna of her time.
I was gonna say, even when Greg is talking to her about her past, he's like, "You used to be this young shop girl,
Yeah.
but now you're not that shop girl anymore. You're just old."
Yeah, you're nothing, and you're nothing but a rotten, crooked lawyer.
Yeah. That just keeps the grease in the wheels.
And it's just so over the top, and it is perfect for gay culture. I mean, Sidetrack, this very popular, it's one of the most popular gay bars in the country. It's a video bar. They still play the strangulation scene. Why can't you give me the respect that I deserve? There's dance mixes, and it's still young gays may not know who Joan Crawford is, but they think Joan Crawford is Faye Dunaway. Oh,
Nice.
that's... And so for me, that movie was sort of a gateway into exploring Joan Crawford.
Did you find it relatable as a young gay person? I mean, I'm curious, like, how did that get to stick in the world of the gay culture? You know, because there's not any gay characters, obviously. There's no dancing.
Cher's not in it.
Cher's not in it. I'm not sure what the appeal is.
I think Joan was always Joan Crawford herself, and that film were always the reason she had, maybe not as much anymore, but the reason gay people love her is because she made herself from nothing, and she fought and she did it her way, and she created herself, and people derided her, and she had a really hard time because she was a woman. People treated her not well, and people like her and Betty Davis Betty Davis. Fought, and she willed herself a star. She just like bent steel, and gay people can relate to that because of all the hardships and the bullshit we go through, especially like the older generation when it wasn't like you could come out when you were 10,
right?
You know, and it was very difficult for me in Northwest Indiana growing up. You know, I got out of there as soon as I could and moved to Chicago.
What was that like for you?
Oh, it was mean. People were mean.
Yeah. Were you openly gay, or were you like hiding it? I mean, my kids like to say masking.
18 years old is when I could never mask it.
Yeah.
Because I was...
You're like, I'm just too gay.
Yeah, people knew I was gay when I was like 5.
Yeah.
And I would hear my parents talking, what's wrong with him? You know, and it was like very traumatic
Of
for
course.
me.
Yeah.
And so it was just no use in hiding it, because in high school before I came out, people would make fun of me or that kind of bullshit. But that's what made me sort of like Joan.
Yeah.
Where I come from the generation where I had to defend myself with my sharp wit and withering put downs, and so it kind of like the old bitchy queen. I had to really work to get out of that mode, and I didn't get out of it until just a few years ago. Because it wasn't working for me anymore, and it wasn't necessary. And I'm like, why are people thinking I'm so like the Wicked Queen from Snow White? And it affects you when you're constantly like, people would call me faggot on the bus. Like I didn't like not just, hey faggot, move.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I couldn't hide it. And
Right.
so I came out when I was about 18 or 19, and my mom wasn't thrilled, even though, like, what are you, an idiot? You don't know that I'm gay? She didn't want to accept it. And so it was really difficult.
Yeah.
And so with Joan, it was just like, yeah, well, you know, fuck you. I'm Joan Crawford. And it's just, I don't know. It's like that and John Waters and
I love John Waters too.
Certain people I gravitated to.
I wonder when you were mentioning that you have ceased to being such a bitchy queen.
Well, as you know,
I was like, I feel like we could probably push it. But, what made you decide to have this kind of shift in attitude?
Because you know, I'm a head of a theater company, and it just was exhausting for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I was holding on to like a lot of that my old go-to defense mechanisms, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need to do this anymore. People know me, they know my work, and I don't need to. I'm trying, you know, I've always been a deep down, like a hooker with a heart of gold, like appearing rough on the outside, but I've always been nice. But some people, they don't like that, and like, people are a lot more. That doesn't fly as much anymore. Like certain people, get it. You know, it's funny and
He
everything.
pointed at us, by the way.
Well, and I would say that Elizabeth and I both probably deeply identify with
Yeah.
what you're saying, because I feel like in the past, I don't know, what did you say, like 5 years, that we've both been sort of like kind of uncovering parts of our
I think
personality.
COVID was probably the big part.
Yeah, because I think both of us have been forced to be really tough and like real, like we're single parents, like, you know, divorced, like that we've had to be like
bipolar
survivors.
ex-husbands and
Yeah, and even just this week, I like had this like talk with my therapist, and like I can't remember exactly what she said, but like I came away from it, and Elizabeth texted me later, and I was like, "Listen, I'm just like, you know, thinking about my young Adrian and how I was probably a very sensitive, like sweet kid, but I had to like build up this whole like bombastic self to
Right.
get me through until this point." And so I feel like I've also been sort of like trying to dismantle the things that like people experience about me that are sort of loud. And
well, I mean, I think we're talking about things like how we can't cope with anything that's like painful, right?
Right.
So like if something terrible happens to you, the reaction is, I'm not gonna fucking cry. No one's gonna see me cry.
Right.
You know, or like that you can't like hold space for yourself. Like you're able to hold space for lots of other people.
Right.
But you have to build some kind of wall for yourself to
Yeah.
deal with that. Which is a great like segue into the idea of like parenting, which is, you know, we talk about with this film. Adrian grew up with an alcoholic mother. I don't know.
I did, everybody.
So did I.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Why don't you guys talk about a little bit about that?
Why don't we, David?
I want to hear more. No, because I do think that has a lot of, you know, I think my kids probably feel like they grew up with an alcoholic mother.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of the gruffness with me, and it's sort of, I grew up in a very chaotic household, and one day it was wonderful, and the next day it was horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the oldest of four, and I would have to protect these kids
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and take them in a room, and you know, that's when Walkmans were around, and my baby sister, I'd put the Walkman on so she wouldn't have to hear things, and it basically, the way I dealt with it was my whole 20s I drank.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't start being creative or doing anything until my like mid 30s. And so that whole, it's like, you don't even want to go into this, but it's just like the layers and layers and layers when you think, oh, you know, I got sober, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing well, and but then all of a sudden, like, this
Yeah.
deal comes like,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I have to deal with this,
Yeah.
and I don't want to,
Yeah.
you know. And Joan, I think Joan is, you know, she had severe trauma, and she drank. That's how she dealt with it, and
Right.
I do believe she was an alcoholic, and I think she had good intentions, and I always tell people when they ask me what I think of the book, I think a lot of the book is a little like bullshit, but I do believe she was abusive. But if we wrote books about our mothers, all the stuff they did, it would be probably with my mom. It would be like, oh my God, are you
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
you know, it's interesting, like what you're talking about, generational trauma. I feel like that's only something that's even been in our lexicon in the last, like, you know, decade, where people are really talking about, like, I don't know if you guys watch Succession. I'm really into Succession. But when people talk about it, I'm like, this is a show about generational trauma, about people just passing on abuse over and over again, and then watching how it's playing out in their relationships around them, you know. I mean, my mom was a very boring alcoholic, which I think is probably, if you're going to grow up that way, perhaps, you know, the best way to do it. Though what you're saying about one day being it this way, and then it's that way, and then it's this way, I identify with that a lot.
And you're always like,
Yeah, always on your toes.
Yeah, and so I always now am looking for like safe, placid, like I like to know what to expect. I mean, like for sure because of that. And Elizabeth will tell you, like when we first started becoming close friends, like she was really good at like being perceptive of like what I would need to like do things that I was uncomfortable doing, like riding bicycles or whatever. Like she would make the environment, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm safe, I can do it, you know. But my experience of that alcoholism was really about like being ignored and spending like my whole childhood like with like, because my dad was a huge codependent and he was just like, you know, literally off like needle pointing religious art and doing like a lot of just like random like collecting brass candlesticks. Like he was off gardening, doing things, and this chick was asleep and then passed out. And
asleep.
Then, right, and there I was. And
like when Joan was drunk on the couch.
Yes.
Oh my God.
What's wrong with her?
That was slightly triggering because there were definitely times.
I was wondering if that was going to like flip you out a little bit.
It didn't flip me out, but there were, it's like seeing like I definitely remember there were times that like my brother and I were like, you need to call an ambulance. Like mom is like not responsive. And my dad not only didn't really tell us what was going on. I mean, it was very just like, no, it's fine. But like when someone doesn't explain to you what's going on, and you're a kid, it creates a lot of sense of unsafety and like unease because, you know, like on TV, if Claire Huxtable was passed out, somebody might call an ambulance.
Right.
Like I definitely didn't understand like at the time.
Yeah, I think the whole ignoring thing is like a big deal, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're talking about these, it's because your parents are being so involved in what they want and what they need and what they're like concerned about or their pain. I think this movie does do a really great job in talking about like the entitlement that certain generations of parents had. You know, I am the parent. You don't get to question my decisions.
Oh, yeah,
You don't get to ask
absolutely.
questions. And when I tell you to do something, you do it.
That's how I grew up, 100%.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, I was definitely,
Same.
yeah, I think that's probably true of our parents' generation of parenting methods. It's just that they were just like, you are a child and you have no value. And this has been very interesting to me to watch Mommie Dearest in the foreground of kind of watching this whole thing happen in Tennessee. Have you been watching this thing in Tennessee?
Yes.
Watching these 7,000 students, for the listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, this last week, over 7,000 students like walked out of class to coordinate. I raised two kids, right? To get two kids out of the door. It's a fucking nightmare. It takes
Yeah, I
forever.
know.
It's like so hard. So the fact that 7,000 plus kids, and I think the top number was 10, but let's just say 7 for the story, that they all coordinated a full walkout of every school to be like, we are sick of being scared in school. To me, was like so wonderful and so strong. And it made me think, like, as a parent of people who are now these ages, that like I listen to my children because they have something to say.
Yeah.
And they have something important to say. And we need to pay attention, right? Like we need to be here to like guide them and move them forward in life and give them tools to be the people that they need to be. In the case of Mommie Dearest, it was just a constant reminder of like children ain't shit. Like no one
Christina
cares.
was an accessory.
Yes. Yes. And I think that that's also kind of a basis of like this entitled parenting that really leaves you in a space where when you become an adult, you're kind of like, no one cares about me. Everything that I want or think about is bullshit. And I'm just going to have to like work this job. And I really relate to you, David, about like being able to finally find your creative space when you're older. I mean, me and Adrian talk about this all the time.
Well, I was definitely wanted to go into theater, but I've signed up for the classes and I dropped out of college after the first year, but I signed up for the class and I didn't go because I was too terrified. I was like, nobody's gonna want it. And I'm writing, you know, I watch Saturday Night Live and back in the day and go, I could do that. And it was just so sad, you know. It was just like,
Well, how did you get over it? Like get over that like block and start? I mean, you're very successful. Like I said, I have seen a lot of Chicago theater, and I'm not kidding. This was my favorite theater experience ever. I mean, like literally, I was like, Elizabeth, go make friends with David. I was like, I'm too starstruck.
that's probably.
I think it's really the only reason you came to Printers Row, actually. She pretended it was me.
Probably.
Well, my life is camp, for
Yeah.
real. I'll tell you my story about
Please
with
do.
my family one day, but I grew up. I came out in 1980, and so when AIDS started, and so basically the short story is I thought I had AIDS and I was going to die, and I went to the doctor and I was like really excited to get benefits and party. And when he told me, that's how I thought, yay. And when I found out I was negative, which is a miracle, that's when I had to come to Jesus moment. And I was like, I guess I'm here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's like a Douglas Sirk film, like. and that's when I started thinking that maybe I was worthwhile, and that maybe I had some value. And it's just a slow journey.
Yeah.
It's it just amazes me when I meet kids that are like, my parents are my best friends. Oh, I love it. What?
We have our friend Kim, who we love and adore, but she is always hanging out with her parents. And I'm just like, what is this? My mom doesn't even know that I left the house. She's like, she's just been like, kid, what kid?
Yeah. So, what were we talking about? Mommie Dearest.
Yes. Well, no, I think we were talking about, being, this actually, again, and segues right into the next subject, which is as we're older and we're growing and we didn't start a creative, a commitment to creative life until later on in our years. Adrian started when you started younger though.
Yeah, you were for a lot good that it's done
90s
me.
sitcom, right? 80s sitcom.
I started pursuing writing when I was 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't start doing anything creative till I was probably about 40.
Okay.
So, being an older person and kind of pursuing these creative dreams. Here's my question that I wrote. I wrote this one down.
It's very serious.
As we are aging, how urgent does it feel to share our creative dreams, and why is it so important? Even though we're going to just die.
Because if you feel that you have something to say, you should say it, because you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. And I try not to think oh my God, I'm X amount years old. And
25.
Yes. And I have 25 good years left or something. And I try not to think that. I just do what I can. And, it's funny. This success is, for me, I'm always oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. I have friends that are oh, I wrote a spec script for blah, blah, and I'm doing this, and I have an agent. And I'm I haven't even been published yet. And people are what do you mean you're not published? I'm well, I would have to proofread everything. I still put up barriers for myself, and it's I can't explain why,
We can. I feel like I 100% identify with this. So does Elizabeth. We've been talking about this a lot. Not to make this about me, David, but
no, please do.
I wrote a book. I got an agent. It took me a very long time. Almost a year. Finally got an agent. The book is now finally on submission. And my agent...
I always love when Adrian's it took us a very long time to get an agent. And it was less than a year.
Okay, but also, as we already established...
But to decide to get an agent. It took you a long time to do it.
Well, I wrote the book for years.
Yeah, it took a couple years.
And then, it took a long time for the agents to... Anyway... The point being, Elizabeth and I are at lunch yesterday. My agent calls and she's like, people love your writing. Some are not so sure about the book. And I was like, oh, great. It's great. And so it was a fine call. Elizabeth keeps trying to reframe it.
I like the way she talks.
Yeah. It was not. She was like, we're going to keep trying. Don't worry about it. But you need to write another book. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? I already wrote this one. And I had already been sort of struggling with starting again. I think because you know how hard it's going to be, or that there's rejection to face, or when you have that information, it is. Elizabeth always talks about. She's like, well, I wouldn't even try because
that's my wall.
Right.
You can always quit.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm always I'm a pretty good writer, but I'll just stay right here.
Right. She's like, I don't want anyone to say anything to me.
Right. Don't tell me that I'm bad.
Listen, I respect that, because having people say this shit to you sucks.
Yeah, and then you get the Joan Crawford face about with the grass stain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
But I feel like I need a little more Joan in me right now. That's just like, fuck all of you. Fuck you, fellas. Like,
Yeah.
like this is what we're going to do. Everybody sit up, you know? But I do think that being a creative, most of the roadblocks are your own, that you're, well, I mean, the agents, the publishers, this shit sucks, but like creating the work, producing it, that's all me setting up problems all the time.
Yeah. Well, and just in Mommie Dearest, when she was let go, she wasn't let go. She quit the studio because the scripts were so bad. She was getting all these horrible movies. And she quit and she waited until she got good scripts. And then she did like all these other films like...
Mildred Pierce.
Yeah. Then she won an Oscar.
Yeah,
that one.
I'm like, humoresque, and you know, she did it because she's like, fuck this. I'm gonna like create my own path and my own destiny.
Right.
And I think that's why her and Betty Davis did not. Betty Davis hated her because they were so much alike. But Joan was more glamorous, and I think Betty wanted that, and Betty was a more respected actress, and I think Joan wanted that.
Right. I think every side you're ever on, you want the other thing. I mean, one of the things that Adrian and I also talk about is, you know, I'm very DIY, like punk rock, like like if they don't publish your book, then you just fucking publish it, and we'll just like move, you know, we'll move into, because by the way, we're pretty good at, like, we would be powerhouses when it comes to like marketing and and moving things forward, which is basically what you need, right? So it's like, you know, but then for Adrian, she's the opposite of that. She tends to want to have more validity by these other people saying like, this is important, like you got to move it forward.
Well, there's that, but also I want to be paid. I mean, that's just the truth of it.
For sure.
I want, like, I love DIY stuff, but you know, like we produce this podcast, we pay for it.
Right.
Like Elizabeth and I do, you know, like we do a lot of our creative endeavors just because we're doing them. And I'm like, at this point, it's been a long time. So David, tell us how you got paid. How'd you set this up?
You're just rolling in money, right?
Can we work for you?
Well, you know, we've been together. Handbags have been around for 21 years. And I got to the point about 6 years ago where I was just like, I can't do this for free anymore.
Yeah.
I can't. It's so time consuming. And the bigger we get, I felt like the little red hen. You know, like everybody wanted to eat the bread, but they didn't want to help make it. And I'm not saying that nobody does anything, but whenever you have a group of people, and especially in non-equity theater in Chicago, they're not getting paid a lot at all. And you can't blame them. They have to work and do other things. And so it was always just me and the same group of people who were doing things. And I was starting to get resentful, and I was like, I'm not going to do this if it makes me angry or makes me resentful. And so I got the board to approve a salary, a livable salary. And
good.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah. And it's tough. And there are times when it's like, well, maybe you're not going to get paid this month, but you know, especially now, it's very, very tough because COVID sort of just like decimated us. And, you know, even though it's not as a big a concern anymore, people are still, they won't go out if it's a little cold, if it's a little rainy, if it's a little this. And the show we're doing now, we're just starting to pick up houses and it's like audience members, and we're so like, oh God.
Well, tell us about the show you're doing now.
Oh, thanks. It's called.
No, we want to know.
It's called I Promised Myself to Live Faster. Ooh. And it is an amazing show from Pig Iron Theater in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that J.D. Cadell, one of our ensemble members, they found it. And it's a space age queer extravaganza about depression, about hiding who you are and finding yourself. And the title says it all. You have to go for it. And he broke up in a relationship and he's visited by 3 space nuns who take him to outer space because he is the chosen one to save the holy gay flame.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And I'm a closeted evil villain, very much like Ming the Merciless and Flash Gordon.
Ooh.
I love Flash Gordon.
Yeah, then
that was a fave.
you both have to come to this show.
Wait, is it in Philadelphia or is it here?
No, it's here. It's
Okay.
at the Chopin.
Oh, at the show. Oh,
I
I love the
love
Chopin.
the Chopin.
Oh,
In
yeah,
the
we're definitely
basement.
going. We're definitely going.
Yes, because it's by that, that pasta place I really want to go
I know.
to.
Where? What?
What's it
Torchy,
Horseshoe?
Tor something. I don't know.
Torchetta.
Let's we're gonna have to wrap up, so I have one more question for you and then we'll go into our final thoughts.
Okay.
But my last question to you, I don't know if you know this, but Adrian and I are on a mission to lift middle-aged voices.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the whole purpose of our
Yes.
I
podcast.
think I'm a little past middle age.
You're super young, David.
Yes, I'm going to live to be 120.
Why do you think it's important for us to have voices? So I keep thinking about this in terms of longevity and the importance of teaching, because I do think that especially as a parent, we want to pass things on to encourage people to stay on the right, not right path. I don't want to say that, but kind of
say that was very Christian of you.
Yeah, it was to be able to kind of see things through the lens of history, maybe is probably the best way of saying that. We now have all this experience and we're looking back. And so I feel like that's why we should be able to be artists and be in films. And
Well, I can tie this back to the theme.
Oh, yay!
I think it's really important for us to have voices because I think we were taught to shut up.
That's definitely true.
Snaps in the room.
And whenever I would say something, a lot of time, oh, yeah, just go back to your TV show or read your, and I totally agree about passing on the traditions, and that's why Helen and Handbag, our theater company, we camp and parody, campiness. It's a LGBTQIA art form. It was a secret language we used to communicate a long time ago. And the fact that I show somebody who Joan Crawford is or who Jane Mansfield is or who, what it was like to be gay and blah, blah, blah times. People need to know that. Right. These younger kids need to know that. And they need to know their queer history, and they need to know that it wasn't always like this, and they need to hear the different language and the different, some things they might find offensive, but we've gotten away with a lot of stuff because of the way we frame it. And we're passing the gay camp flame onto the youngins, and it's really nice. We'll have 60-year-old, 70-year-old people, men and women, gay people, and 20s. We've had teenagers that come see shows together, and they're all laughing together.
I love that.
And we create allies too. The Golden Girls is an amazing. We do the Golden Girls parody show.
I've also seen you do that.
And
I'm I gotta go out to one of these David Cerda productions.
And the people that come together, it's just amazing. So yeah, it's really important that you hear our voices too. And sometimes we say the stupid things and wrong things like everybody else, but it promotes discussion.
My heart's all fluttered. I'm I love this. I think it's so important. I think history matters a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think looking back at where you come from is so part of your development to understand how you're going to move forward, so this is David, you're the best.
Oh, thank you.
All right, final thoughts. Adrian,
what
would you recommend Mommie Dearest to anyone?
Sure. I mean, yes. Everyone should see it at least once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a movie that you would recommend that's similar if you liked Mommie Dearest?
I don't know that I do, but I would love to hear David tell us what other camp genre movies that people should watch on their day of camp.
On your day of camp.
Yeah.
Well, a Joan Crawford movie that is perfectly matched to Mommie Dearest, it's called Torch Song. It's from the 50s, and it was her return to MGM, and it's her first big color movie, and she plays Jenny Stewart, a Broadway star who takes no guff, and she's so tough and lonely, and then she meets a blind pianist. And slowly things begin to happen.
Yes.
But they're like Mommie Dearest lines in that.
Yeah.
She's like mean. The other one, my favorite campy movie is Female Trouble, and it's sort
I
of like
love that one.
on purpose camp, but there's so many. I can't even.
Give us some John Waters
would you-
ones.
That's Female Trouble.
Oh yeah, Female Trouble, Pink Flamingos.
Yeah, Hairspray. I love
I love
Hairspray.
Cry Baby. One of my favorite movie
Yeah.
lines from that movie is like, "Cry Baby, you're such a cry baby."
Would you say the Rosalind Russell Annie Mame is camp?
Yeah.
Because
a little bit,
that's one of
yeah.
my top favorite movies. It's a
Yeah.
little maybe too earnest to be full camp.
Well, but real camp isn't intentionally campy, like
Right.
Valley of the Dolls.
Right.
Valley of the
I
Dolls
love
is
that one.
legendary.
Yes.
You know, Patty Duke. I hosted a screening with Patty Duke, Valley of the Dolls, and Music Box, and she hated the movie for years
Yeah.
until the gay community made her realize that it had value and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I've done Mommie Dearest
Yeah.
screenings, and if you can ever see Mommie Dearest on the full big screen, it's a different movie. It's even more like her face.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because it takes up the whole screen.
It's like,
yeah.
give her all the Oscars.
All right, everyone.
has been so great.
It's
Thank
been so
you.
fun.
Oh.
So, everyone, thanks for listening to Don't Ruin This For Me. Special thanks to the Lincoln Lodge and our producer, Christine Ferreira, and our graphic designer, Jessica Savage. David, where can our listeners find you?
Handbagproductions.org. And I'm on Facebook, too. David Cerda, CERD, as in dog. A.
I'm not sure if we're friends yet, but
We're going to make it happen.
We should be.
I may have already stalked you and tried to friend
Elizabeth
you.
and I are
Oh,
friends.
okay. Well, then
I think you
probably-
like Pedro. What's
Pascal.
his name?
Pedro
Yeah.
Pascal.
I know
You
his
think.
name.
It's so hot.
She definitely does. Hey, are you guys looking for even more Adrian and Elizabeth?
Yes.
If so, you can check out our Substack newsletter. Mine is called Where the Fuck's My Happy Ending? And Elizabeth's is called Mixed Race Tape. And you can follow the pod on Instagram at Don't Ruin This Pod.
And come back next week for 9 to 5, another iconic film starring Dolly Parton, Lily Tomlin, and Jane Fonda. We're also going to have special guest Dina Nina Martinez.
Oh, shit.
Who just won her aldermanic election. She just ran in Madison,
What?
Wisconsin. First trans woman to be an alder
I
in Dane,
met
Dane
her.
County. Yeah, isn't that
She's
exciting?
fucking hilarious.
First, I know. I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
So proud of her.
Yeah, cannot wait. And, as we've said, don't forget to elevate middle-aged women's voices and, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. Woohoo! Thanks, David.
Thank you. I love being here.
So